NASA has just released new images of 3I Atlas, and what they reveal is forcing everyone to rethink what this object really is. Imagine a caveman discovering a smartphone. He'd probably turn it over in his hand and say, "It's a rock, unlike any I've seen before." That, according to Loeb, is exactly how Professor Brian Cox is reacting to 3I Atlas. On October 29th, Brian Cox claimed the object was nothing more than a typical comet, a frozen mix of carbon dioxide, ice and rock drifting through space. But Loeb wasn't having it. He fired back, saying Cox was acting like that cave dweller, holding something extraordinary and calling it ordinary. The timing of this debate couldn't have been more dramatic, because just as the two scientists began their public clash, new high-resolution images of 3I Atlas surfaced, and they don't behave like anything we've seen before. So what exactly are we looking at? 3I Atlas, an interstellar visitor roughly the size of Manhattan, has just changed course, defying expected gravitational models. And almost immediately, official channels went silent. NASA, ESA, even the amateur observatories that had been updating daily, stopped. What's going on? Between October 14th and October 31st, a strange pattern emerged. The European Space Agency released blurry, incomplete data from its Mars orbiters. NASA's communications slowed. And then, on October 1st, a government shutdown quietly began, just one day before the comet's most critical observation window. Coincidence or convenience? Because on October 31st, the data everyone had been waiting for finally dropped. Not from NASA, but from a constellation of private satellites called Punch, the polarimeter to unify the corona and heliosphere. These satellites were never designed to track comets. They were meant to study the sun. Yet positioned perfectly, they caught 3I Atlas at its closest approach. And what they found deepened the mystery. Instead of a brilliant tail or glowing coma, the object appeared as a faint smudge, barely visible even after contrast enhancement. Star trails were subtracted, background noise removed, and still, it was almost invisible. How can professional instruments in orbit produce images worse than backyard telescopes on Earth? The only explanations are unsettling. Either the object is incredibly small, or incredibly dark. Or perhaps it's designed not to be seen at all. Because if an object absorbs light rather than reflecting it, if it's coated in radar-absorbent or stealth-like materials, it would look almost invisible against the cosmic background. That's not a comet signature, that's an engineered one. And now, as new data trickles in, more astronomers are starting to ask the same question Loeb did. What if 3I Atlas isn't natural at all? After those strange images surfaced, the question shifted from, "What is 3I Atlas?" to, "Why is no one talking about it?" Because between October 14th and October 31st, a clear pattern appeared, and it wasn't the movement of a comet, it was the movement of information. Every official release was delayed, every dataset came late, and when NASA's own high-resolution imaging team prepared to publish their results, the government shutdown took effect. Right on cue. Almost as if silence was part of the plan. The Punch satellites weren't even meant to observe comets, yet they became the only source of images during the blackout. Tiny smudges of light processed by independent scientists using stacking techniques just to extract a trace of the object. The results? Barely visible structure, no clear nucleus, no reflected sunlight, just a faint, shifting blur that shouldn't be possible for an object supposedly tens of kilometers wide. So, what could make something so large appear so faint? A surface darker than charcoal, an albedo close to zero, or, and this is where it gets interesting, deliberate engineering. See, in our own space programs, we've already built stealth satellites. We use coatings designed to absorb radar, scatter light, and make detection nearly impossible. If humanity can do that, why assume we're the only ones who can? Because there's something else the data shows, and it's subtle but critical. The object's course changed, not slightly, not by chance. It deviated just enough to suggest a force acting beyond gravity. If you've been following this story, you know that means one of two things: outgassing, jets of vapor pushing a comet slightly off its predicted path, or propulsion, controlled movement. The first would fit if we saw signs of melting, vapor trails, sublimation. But we don't. 3I Atlas remains cold, stable, controlled. Which makes the second explanation, propulsion, disturbingly plausible. R.V. Loeb called this the moment when institutional narratives start to crack. Because the pattern repeats itself. When the data challenges convention, silence. When anomalies appear, delay. When something doesn't fit the model, reclassification or dismissal. It's the same story we've seen before, artificial mistaken for natural because the truth doesn't fit inside the equations. And then, on October 31st, as if scripted for drama, ESA's Mars orbiter released its own images. The closest spacecraft observation ever, just 30 million kilometers away. And still, the solid core remained invisible. No defined structure, no reflective surface. Nick Thomas, principal investigator of the CASIS camera, even admitted, the comet is between 10,000 and 100,000 times fainter than our usual targets. That's not faint, that's cloaked. So maybe the mystery of 3I Atlas isn't just about what it is, but what it's doing. Because if it was built to hide, then maybe it's not just passing through. Now, imagine this. 1 million years from now, one of our Voyager probes drifts into another star system. Its radio is silent. Its nuclear batteries are long dead. No signals, no thrust. Just a small metallic relic gliding endlessly through the dark. Somewhere out there, an alien civilization might detect it. They'd measure its path, note its speed, see that it's on a hyperbolic trajectory, just passing through. Would they know it was built? Would they recognize it as a machine? Or would they too call it a rock, a strange shiny asteroid that came from the stars? That, my friends, is the haunting parallel of 3I Atlas. Because if you strip away the labels, the technical jargon, and the politics, you're left with a single truth. We've seen this before, and we've misclassified it before. In fact, earlier this year, an object catalogued as a harmless asteroid was quietly removed from NASA's Minor Planet database. After someone noticed, it was maneuvering. A natural asteroid doesn't change direction on command. It doesn't maintain trajectory with precision. It doesn't behave like a spacecraft under control. That object turned out to be China's Chang'e 6 relay satellite, misidentified until its artificial nature became undeniable. And if one probe can fool our systems, how many others already have? This is where the ghost hypothesis emerges, the idea that 3I Atlas isn't an active visitor, but an ancient one. A probe from a civilization long gone, drifting on the last echo of momentum. No transmissions, no propulsion, just geometry. A message carved in metal, still moving long after its makers disappeared into cosmic history. The late physicist Freeman Dyson once said, "Technology is the form that life takes when it outgrows biology." So, what if what we're seeing isn't alive in the way we understand, but is still, in a sense, living? A memory made of alloy and silence, a thought crossing galaxies. But to confirm that, we'd need to see detail. We'd need to get close enough to identify structure, angles, patterns, repeating geometry. And that's the one thing we still don't have. The high-resolution, high-rise images from October 2nd, the ones that might show the surface, remain unreleased, suppressed, filed away during a shutdown that began just one day earlier. Coincidence? Perhaps, or perhaps not. Because the silence of institutions often speaks louder than any announcement. And so the pattern continues. When anomalies appear, they stall. When questions rise, they distract. And when the public starts paying attention, they go quiet. But space doesn't wait for bureaucracy. 3I Atlas keeps moving, its light keeps changing, and its mystery grows with every kilometer. And maybe, just maybe, what we're watching isn't a comet at all. Maybe it's a relic, a mirror, a memory from another time drifting through ours. We're now entering the final observation window for 3I Atlas. November 9th, the moment it crosses its closest approach to Earth's orbital path. And this time, the world will be watching. Because despite the silence, despite the missing data, a network of independent observatories from Chile, Japan, and even amateur telescopes across Europe have begun pooling their findings. Together, they're reconstructing the true path of the object. Early results are already strange. The faint tail seen last month is now gone. The brightness fluctuates wildly, as if the object is rotating, but with a rhythm far too even for natural tumbling. One full rotation every 22 hours. Smooth, precise, like a stabilized craft keeping itself in alignment. And the most recent images show something else. Subtle, geometric flashes that appear at consistent intervals, almost like a reflection pattern. Not sunlight bouncing off ice, but a repeating glint, as though from a surface made of panels. That's not cometary behavior, that's design. Of course, the official explanation will be the same as always: optical illusion, instrumental noise, coincidence. The usual vocabulary of comfort. But deep down, we know better. We've seen this before, the same deflection, the same unwillingness to look at the bigger picture. Because to admit this might not be a comet would mean admitting we are not alone. And for many, that's still too heavy a truth to carry. Yet, history has a rhythm, and truth has a way of resurfacing when we're ready. The same way our ancestors once mistook meteors for divine fire, we may now be mistaking technology for nature. Because everything new looks impossible, until it isn't. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't here to visit. Maybe it's just passing through, unaware of our attention, like a bottle tossed into a cosmic ocean, drifting past another island of minds. And maybe our role isn't to chase it or claim it, but simply to notice it, to stand in awe at the mystery that still exists beyond our equations. Because if the universe truly is alive with intelligence, then this silence, this wonder, this not knowing, is how it speaks. Not through messages or lights in the sky, but through presence. Through patterns that make us stop, look up, and ask the only question that matters: what if? And maybe that's the beginning of something greater. Not the end of the story, but the moment we finally learn how to listen.